Hello and welcome to Cooking the Books with Heather. Today we're going to be making buttermilk fried chicken out of Tanya Holland's Brown Sugar Kitchen cookbook. Now look, fried chicken, I've made it once on my channel way back at the beginning from Pool's Diner. But while it is one of my family's favorite things to eat in general, when I told my children last night that that's what I'm going to be making for today, they were not excited. In fact, they're like, "Aw, is it going to be fancy?" Well, I don't think this is fancy fried chicken. This is a very basic fried chicken recipe. There's no extra sauces or anything that you put on top of it. You just make the fried chicken. It does have a lot of herbs and spices, not 11, we counted. I think 10 if you include salt and pepper. But I think it will be just a standard fried chicken recipe, but I'm sure it will taste great. All this herbs and spices that you marinate it with buttermilk, it's gonna be great. So we're gonna have this for dinner tonight, and it has to sit in the refrigerator in the buttermilk for like 8 hours up to overnight. You end up almost 24 hours if you do it the night before. So this is the morning before we're gonna eat. It's about 9:20, so a little bit after 5 o'clock we'll finish this up, but let's get started. First we have to make a spice blend, and there's a lot, like I said, a lot. I think it's 10. So I'm gonna start with, we have some just fresh minced parsley. And I didn't measure it, I just minced what I had, so I'm going to measure it before I put it in here. There we go. Okay, so we have the parsley in here. I've got some dried tarragon, which I had to buy because we don't use very much. Some onion powder. Sweet paprika, just regular paprika, not spicy, not smoked. Kosher salt. So let me measure this. Go. Yeah. So we have garlic powder. I'm being very careful because I have missed things recently, so I'm very careful to read this. We have some cayenne powder, cayenne pepper. We need some black pepper. So this recipe calls for an awful lot of black pepper, so I just ground some in my spice grinder, so it would be easy. And the rest of that should be used later. Some oregano and some thyme. So that is a lot of spices. I'm just gonna mix this up. You probably won't hear this part or see this part because metal on metal drives my husband crazy. Okay, so now we need our chicken. I just ordered a whole chicken cut up. It's supposed to be a chicken cut up in 8 pieces. I hope that's what I have in here. Yes. So we're just adding this to the bowl. Why are my thighs such very different sizes? Whatever. Oh, look, they also include the backbone and everything, all the pieces. I need to decide if I want to make some stock out of that later. Okay, so now I just need to toss this to coat it with my herb mixture. I don't know, I'm not sure why you would do it this way instead of mixing the herb mixture into the buttermilk first versus doing it this way. I don't know, but this is what she says to do, so this is what I'm going to do. I'm gonna wash my hands because I don't need to do anything else with this at this point after I add the buttermilk. I just pour the buttermilk over and we'll be done. So I'm gonna wash my hands first. All right, so the last step at this point is just to pour the buttermilk over, and she doesn't say to mix it up after you do so, or to mix it up during the waiting time. So we're just gonna pour it over, and we're gonna cover this with plastic wrap and put it in the refrigerator to sit for, like I said, 8 hours to overnight. We'll go for about 8 hours, so we'll be back about 5:30. My chicken has been in the refrigerator for 9 hours-ish at this point, and we're ready to eat dinner. I have some my sides sort of sitting on the stove, ready to go. So I have a baking pan with a wire rack in the oven, and the oven is set to 350. I have my cast iron skillet, 12-inch cast iron skillet with about 3/4 of an inch of oil in it that we're heating up on medium heat to about 350 again. It's not there yet, but we're coming up a little bit. I might turn it up just a tad. I have my chicken over here. I'm gonna go ahead and take the plastic off of that. Full disclosure, I did go in about a couple hours after I put it in the refrigerator just to see if the buttermilk was sort of getting down in between all the pieces, and it didn't seem to be, so I sort of stirred it up a little bit just to make sure it all had some contact with the buttermilk. And now we're gonna make our dredge. I have my all-purpose flour already measured out in the bowl, and we're just gonna add to this some salt, kosher salt, and black pepper that I ground earlier. So we'll have a little bit more of that we can do something with. And I'm just gonna mix that up into my flour. There we go. So I'm using my Thermapen infrared just to check the temperature. We're still not quite to 350, but I'm gonna go ahead and dredge at least one piece. We're gonna fry these like 2 to 3 pieces at a time. We do not want to overcrowd the pan, and we're not trying to cook these completely in the pan. We're going to, once they're brown enough, we're going to move them to the oven to finish cooking for about 20 minutes, she says. I'm gonna do my larger pieces first. I'm gonna do the breast and the thighs first and get those in there so they'll have a little bit longer than the wings and the legs, which are sort of smaller pieces and generally take a little bit less time to cook. So that's my game plan here. So as soon as my oil comes up to temperature, I'm gonna start frying, and I'm gonna start with my breasts, I believe. Okay. So what we need to do to get it ready is to basically let any extra bits of buttermilk sort of fall off, and there doesn't seem to be like a ton, and then put it into our flour mixture. I'm going to use my hands at this point and just make sure it gets fully covered by the seasoned flour mixture. My oil is finally at 350, so I'm gonna go ahead and get one of these in here and get the other one ready and go and put it in. Just slowly drop it in there. Get this one dredged. She does say to turn these occasionally, so it's not just a one turn and done kind of deal. So I'm going to do that when I think that we've got a good coat on one side. And we're just going for crisp and browned before we move these to the oven. Now my chicken was a little bit bigger than the one, so she says basically a 3.5, 3 to 4 pound chicken. Mine was closer to 5, but that's what I got. So it might take a little bit longer, but it should be fine. This is the thing with frying, is trying to keep your oil the right temperature without getting it too hot. Or letting it get too cold. So you put the cold food in, and then the temperature goes down, and then you turn the heat up, and it might get up too hot. So it's a little difficult. That's if you don't fry often, that's a thing you have to learn to deal with, I guess. And I don't fry all that often, honestly. So if your oil is too cold, the food absorbs more of the oil. If your oil is too hot, it'll brown before it cooks. It's a whole mess. So at this point, I'm just sort of letting the edges of my breast that aren't, the thick edges that aren't in the oil very much, get brown. And as soon as that happens, I'm going to put them in the oven. But I'm going to go ahead and put one of my thighs in, because there's room now. You definitely want to shake off the extra flour. So I'm going to move the breasts into the oven now, which is very hot, and I have to reach over the hot stuff and all that to do it the way the producer says is right. So I'm just going to keep dredging and frying in small batches until we're done. And then it's going to be about 20 minutes after that that we can eat. So the wings, in my opinion, are kind of the hardest to get cooked right when you don't deep fry them, just because of their shape. It's hard to get them into the oil, but these seem to be doing okay, in my opinion. But I'll be turning those relatively often, I think, just to make sure they get cooked well. These are pretty much done. As soon as I transfer these into the oven, I'm going to set a timer for 15 minutes, at which point I'm going to check the internal temperature, particularly of the breasts that I cooked first, because they were very large, and the large thigh, and probably one of these last pieces, just to make sure that they are all at 165 or above, because that's the safe cooking temperature for chicken. And then we'll be ready to eat, and I'll show you what it looks like. On this episode of Cooking the Books with Heather, you watched me make buttermilk fried chicken from Tanya Holland's Brown Sugar Kitchen cookbook. And I have to say, this is probably my favorite method for making fried chicken at home. The method itself, I do love that you don't have to worry about frying it until the chicken is completely done. You just fry it until it looks nice and crispy and brown on the outside, and then you put it in the oven until it's done. So that is very helpful, because it's really easy to undercook fried chicken or overcook the outside while you're trying to get the inside cooked. So that's a really good method. It's really not that difficult. Making the spice mix, super easy. You just mix together some pre-ground spices or dried spices, a little bit of fresh parsley. I kind of wonder if it would be easier or better if you mix the spices into the buttermilk instead of trying to coat the chicken with them. I do know that the way that she tells you to do this, and that's so you coat the chicken with the spices and then you pour the buttermilk over top, and she doesn't tell you to mix it up or anything like that. And I know that one of our pieces of chicken got sort of extra spices on it and was extra spicy because there is some cayenne pepper in it, and somehow one of the pieces was just really spicy. Luckily, my husband got that piece and he likes spice. The kids did not have a problem with the spice level, so it was okay, but if they had gotten that piece, I'm sure they wouldn't have loved it. They did like the chicken, but I do think that mixing the chicken up with the buttermilk was probably a good idea. And I did, after a little while, after a couple hours probably, I went in just to see if the buttermilk was soaking in between the pieces of chicken or if I still had some uncoated pieces of chicken in the bottom. And I did have uncoated pieces. So I don't know. Next time I do this, if I do this again, I'm not big on frying chicken at home or frying anything at home. I do it very occasionally, and when I do it, I kind of do all the fried things at once just so I can use the oil, use it up, and get done with it. But and you can buy fried chicken around where I am. You can buy very good fried chicken relatively inexpensively, pretty much anytime you want it. But it was really good. The method was good. So if you want to make fried chicken at home, this is a great sort of starter recipe. The buttermilk soak helps the chicken stay nice and moist and be a little bit more tender, and the spices are a good flavoring. And then the frying method is probably one of the best ones for particularly a new person who hasn't fried chicken before, because then, like I said, you don't have to worry about the chicken being done. But my kids didn't love it. Well, they liked it. They did not prefer it to the stuff we can buy nearby. So they're not going to be asking for this one again. But if I decided I wanted to, impress some people and make fried chicken, I think this is probably the recipe I would use, because it's a pretty standard buttermilk fried chicken with a little twist with some extra herbs. So if you enjoyed watching me make this, please give me a thumbs up, hit the subscribe button, share it with your friends. Let me know what you think of fried chicken, what your favorite one is down in the comments below. Thanks for watching. Come back and watch me make something else next week.